So friends, I'd like to call this meeting now officially to order. I'd like to remind us that this is an informational meeting, so we are here to learn what the team has found. This team is chaired by Doug Tingley, who is the vice chair of our board and is the chair of the property evaluation committee. So he's been doing a lot of work. I'll introduce again Matthew Carter, who is a consultant working with the Pacific Mountain region. He's been very helpful in helping us navigate through all of the complications of considering any direction. So you'll meet these two folks, and I've got a microphone there, so you may want to sit fairly close if you already know that you have questions, so you can come up. I really want people to use the microphone so that especially folks at home can hear, and I suspect that others will be viewing this recording because they will be very curious about one of all the possible directions we'll move as a church. So the microphone is right there for you. Thanks for your attendance. I know it's hard to fit everything in, but we really appreciate your participation, your wisdom, and your thoughts and prayers in this area. I'll turn this over to Doug.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me? Okay. A little closer, because sometimes this mic doesn't work as good as some other times. I'm not going to be too long in my thing. It'll take about 3 minutes, but I know everybody wants to go to the BC Lions game or watch it at home or whatever, and many other things going on today. So I'll start off with a little brief history of Northwood. Northwood United was created in 1998. We had 2 ministers and many ministries. Over the years, our ministries were reduced significantly, and we went down to 1 minister. Currently, we are not living up to the Northwood vision and mission statement. And I maybe put that on the screen. Right? I think everybody's had a chance to look at that over the last week or so. And we haven't lived up to that for quite some time. Why? Simply, our income versus expenses does not allow us to live up to our vision and mission. I think most people realize that. About 6 years ago, we looked into the possibility of redeveloping the church property. It was deemed not viable at that time. We decided to revisit the property development about 1 year ago. So we agreed to enlist the help of property development consultants to work with us. Matthew Carter is right here, and Don Evans, both working together with the United Church of Canada. Over the last year, we met and Zoomed with Matt and Don several times. We considered many different options on redeveloping the property. We spent a lot of time discussing this. We were discouraged regarding partnership agreements with developers because of many variables at this time: high interest rates, building costs, labor costs, etc. We just considered too risky at this time. A lot of churches have done this before, but they've done it in a time where interest was almost nothing, and the variables were not there. We agreed our current church building more than meets our needs as far as square footage and facilities goes. Our building is only 24 years old. Over the years, we've been unable financially to set aside funds to address major maintenance issues, such as the estimated $200,000 heating unit on the roof. We have been informed by our heating service company that it is beyond its expected lifespan. We do not know how we would address this if it became absolutely necessary to replace at this time. We do not feel that it makes any sense to demolish our church to redevelop the whole property at this time on this option. We do not feel that we should enter into a developer partnership agreement at this time for various reasons on this option that we're dealing with. We do feel that we should explore the possibility of selling the north property and retaining the southern section of property along with our church. We would then use some of the proceeds of the sale to address the major outstanding maintenance updating items with the church and church property. We'd use some of the proceeds of the sale to be able to address the issues lacking in our vision and mission going forwards for decades to come. In order to do this, we would have to develop a very comprehensive business plan to show to everyone how this would work for us. And of course, the final decision would be yours to make. It's not the committee, it's not anyone else, it's a congregation. So what we'd like to do is open up the floor for questions and comments so we can get some feedback from you guys on how you feel about this, and are we going in the right direction or not? So I would welcome people to come to the mic, give questions, or make comments on this. Thank you. No questions? No? Yes. Well, there was a tree that fell on the thrift store yesterday. It's probably, in one way, it's the worst thing that could happen right now. It's been sealed, so no more water comes in. We're dealing with the insurance company. The tree's off the roof, but there's a deductible we'll have to pay. Dealing with insurance companies, usually you don't get money right away. It's not very quick, and it's usually a long process. And depending on what the insurance company says, we don't know about loss of income and all this stuff. We have to discuss with them on that. So but at the very least, we'll probably have to pay a deductible to go into a claim. It's not good, you know. And when we'll receive money and how much paperwork we'll have to go through to get it, I don't know. It's just unknown. I'd just rather the tree wouldn't have hit the building. So that's something that's.
We need to use the mic, please.
Yeah, so everybody can hear, please go to the mic, because then people are straining to try to hear, right? So, any other questions? Yeah. Yeah.
We need the mic, please.
Just please use the mic. What's that? I know, but it's much easier, right?
Way though, are you looking at my back? Okay. All right, there we are. Is it on? All right. Can you hear me though? Yeah? Okay. So I was just going to say to Doug that maybe it might be helpful if Doug just gives a really quick overview of the first of the feasibility study that's been done, like not in big detail, but just what's been done so far. From the consultant's perspective?
Well, I'll get Matt Carter to do that part.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
So
good.
for the more technical part of it, that's what you're talking about?
Or just to give people an idea that there was a first part of a feasibility work that's been done, and that might just give people an idea of what else to ask.
So maybe questions after that.
Okay. All right. Matt can fill you in on that.
Thanks, Doug. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? My name is Matthew Carter. Thanks very much for having me here today. I'm a consultant. I work very closely with the Pacific Mountain region of the United Church. My background is on real estate development projects with typically with institutional landowners. I do a lot of work with churches, universities, school districts, and other groups. And I'm retained to the Pacific Mountain region to help United Church congregations throughout the province look at ways that they could leverage their property to help achieve certain objectives within the congregation. So the work I've been doing with Doug and Dan and Rod and Scott, and more recently with Pam and Marilyn, is very much in the kind of work that I typically do with the church. And it's been a great process. I've been involved since about May. We've had some excellent interaction with the committee, and we are still pretty much at the beginning of the process, but I feel we've made some good progress, and it's great to have the opportunity to get some feedback today. So I have a few architectural drawings on the screen here. Can people see them okay from where you're sitting? And I'm just going to use these drawings, I hope, to give you a bit of a sense of the work we've been doing and how that work, I think, has shaped the committee's thinking and their early recommendations to myself and my colleague Don Evans. So this first architectural drawing just really shows some context. It shows your 3-acre property here at the corner of 88th and 156th. And one of the characteristics of your property, well, there's actually 2 characteristics of Northwood's property that I think are significant and give you some advantages that many congregations I work with don't have. The first is that you have a fairly large property with elements of your property that aren't critical to the operation of your church. So there is potentially some land that exists that isn't being fully utilized. It's being partially utilized, but not fully utilized. And it could be possible to create some redevelopment without removing or interfering possibly with this existing church building, which as Doug mentioned, we think has a lot of value. The second aspect, which we'll get to in a moment, is that your property has landed within an area that the city of Surrey is contemplating for redevelopment. Because of the new SkyTrain infrastructure that is going to be coming down Fraser Highway, we in this part of the city are in the Fleetwood area city plan. So the city plan has identified this part of the city as an area for redevelopment and for growth, and your property is within that area, which is potentially helpful if we're trying to redevelop or monetize in some fashion a portion of the property. So those 2 characteristics, I think, are really helpful to us potentially in the work that we're trying to do. Would you mind going to the next slide? Another one, please. Just pause here a moment. So this slide, it might be difficult to read, but this slide is an extract from the City of Surrey's Fleetwood area plan. And many of you perhaps might have heard of the plan or been following it. It's currently going through the political process of City of Surrey Council. But effectively what it does is it tries to densify this area of the city around the presence of future SkyTrain stations. And all of the colors in that drawing are land use designations for each different property within this whole strip of area where the SkyTrain is coming. And the Northwood United Church has a certain designation that could help us redevelop either the whole property or a portion of the property. Can we go to the next one? This drawing, moving away from the city plan, moving back to your property, this drawing, on the left is a photograph, on the right is a plan. But what it says to me is that your 3-acre property, this whole area here, has a northern part of the property which is not fully utilized. There's obviously the thrift store, but there's an area of the property that is not fully utilized. Could we go to the next one? And what we have been exploring is whether it could be possible for a building to be developed on the north. Thank you so much. Thanks. Whether it could be possible to develop a portion of the northern part of your property in a manner that is more or less consistent with the city's area plan, that could allow the church to sell off a piece of that property, so a developer could build a building, pay the church some money for that portion of the property, and then allow the church here on the southern portion of the property to continue to exist. So what we have here, the existing church, and then here we have the northern portion, which could potentially be redeveloped. Could we go to the next one, please, Mike? This image, I hope people can see this one. Thank you. That's great. I'm slowly getting the various tools. So this image is, this shows what could potentially happen if you were to redevelop the entire property. So the entire 3 acres here, that shows how the property could be redeveloped in a way that's more or less consistent with the city's plan. And what we find interesting is it might be possible for the first phase of that development, the northern piece, to happen fairly soon. The church could make some money from that process, use that money to address some of the deferred maintenance issues in the church building, possibly also to establish an endowment that could provide an annuity payment to the church, which would allow more ministry work and a more sustainable financial situation. And then later in future, at some future time, which could be a few years or it could be many, many, many more years, the southern portion of the property could then be redeveloped in a subsequent phase. That would involve removing the church, redeveloping the church, but that's something that could happen longer term, down the road. So what we've been working on with the committee is it possible to approach the city of Surrey and to, which we've done in a very preliminary way, but to approach them with a more detailed set of thinking around, could we subdivide off the northern portion of the site, just this piece here, to allow the church to sell that property, make some money, use that money for the betterment of the congregation, to fix up the building and to create an endowment fund, and then preserve the opportunity to do a more complicated, more ambitious, potentially more exciting redevelopment project at some stage in the future, which would be that piece there. So could we go back to the one before? So what the committee is currently thinking about the next steps, and there's no, as Scott's mentioned and as Doug mentioned, there's no firm decisions being asked. It's just I think a question of checking in with the congregation to see whether people support the direction. But what we're thinking is that we feel it would make sense to approach the city of Surrey, to do a little bit more due diligence work with some consultants, and to see whether it would be possible to subdivide the northern piece, where the thrift shop and the trees and other parts of the northern property currently are, create a development site so that that could then be sold and bring some money into the congregation. So just this piece here. Shall I stop there, Doug? Yeah. Thank you.
That's kind of why we're trying to get some feedback from you guys, because the next step for us is to do a lot of work. To come back with a comprehensive business plan is not just like 10 minutes, right? It's going to take a lot of paperwork, a lot of research. We have to look at this building, see what the deficiencies are, what are the costs to bring this building up to where we want to bring it to. What is the cost to bring on a second minister, for instance? What is the cost to bring in a youth minister? All these things have to be all documented on paper. That's not an easy process. So we don't really like to go through all that and not have the general agreement from the congregation, who is going to make the decision at the end. If we make a decision, it's going to be your decision. But we don't really want to waste our time in doing this and then find out that people don't want it, right? So we'd like to find out from you guys today or in the near future that do you agree with the direction that Matt has described, or we're not pushing it, we're just asking for your feedback or any kind of comments so we can get some feeling from you as to whether we're going in the right direction or not. So I would welcome any comments or questions. And yeah. Yeah. Just use the mic, it's so everybody can.
Maybe it's because I'm going up in age, but as long as thank you. As long as you leave the church here, if you're going to, I can agree that if you're going to sell off that part, I will agree to that. But once the church is moved, I will be unhappy if this part of the church is moved. That's all I have to say. Okay? Thank you.
So
Remember, what are we going to do with those people, the bodies of the people, the grave site on here? If we sell this, what happened to those people? The memorial garden.
yeah. So that's good question. Go ahead.
First, I wanted to thank you and the committee for the work that you've done and the hard decisions that you're going to make. But second of all,
Yes, not a very good.
how
mic.
is the rest of the structure of the church? You mentioned that the
Well, there is
HVAC
deficiencies. We have a hot water tank that probably needs replaced. We're looking at some more environmentally friendly moves in regards to heating and stuff like that. Carpets. We're looking at carpets. That's especially the entryway. Doors. The steel doors are wore out. We can't fix them. They don't have parts. Sometimes they lock, sometimes they don't lock. That's a matter of security, right? There's a number of things, but what we would do in this business plan, we would go through this church and consult with people and to get all those deficiencies identified and see. This is not an easy task. You have to get estimates on what that would cost, right? It's not a simple process, right? And there's decision probably about the flooring too. Maybe we want to go to a different type of flooring, right? Especially in the entryway where there's food and stuff spilt all the time, and it quite quickly becomes quite ugly if you put in carpet. So maybe we're looking at the possibility of using some other material that could be easily cleaned. We don't want to leave no stone unturned. I mean, we've been suffering quite a few years with known as a church with the tarp, right? So it's not like we haven't suffered. We suffered quite a bit. We don't expect perfection in the church, but we want to go forward to decades to come so that we don't have to all of a sudden say, okay, we have to spend $50,000, $100,000 to fix this and fix that, right? We want to be able to address the major issues, right? Yeah, the basic structure is fine. It's a 24-year-old building. It would be a shame to demolish this building. Yeah.
Yeah, so my question just has to do with, I'm unclear as to the options. I heard one option, which is to develop the northern part, and if I'm unclear, please correct me, but the southern part of the property, from what I understand, we are to preserve some sort of option to develop it in the future, which means there would be no church. So what are the options? That's one of them. Is the second option to develop the northern part and to renovate the southern part?
Yes.
So there are two options.
There's multiple options. We're,
Okay, those
we're
are
just
the most
suggesting,
obvious
we're
ones.
recommending one,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Right now, if
Yeah.
it's rejected by the congregation, then we'll have to go to Plan B.
So the one
Right.
you're recommending is to develop the northern part and to renovate the southern part.
Right now,
And,
sell
Sell it.
sell the northern part.
right, so the developer will develop it.
Yeah.
Is that right? And then we have to ask the city of Surrey if that's okay?
No, we're dealing with the city of Surrey right now.
Yes.
But-
But they would make, that we have to present a case to the city of Surrey?
We're already doing that right now.
And the case you're presenting is what?
Pardon me?
What is the case that you are presenting to them? To develop the northern part and to
Yes.
do what with the southern part?
It's got nothing to do with the city of Surrey on the southern part.
Okay, but don't you
Right.
have, didn't you say you have to make budget recommendations, et cetera, et cetera? Who do you make those recommendations to?
To the Pacific Mountain region.
The Pacific Mountain region. So
Yes.
they're involved in this as well?
Yes.
So the Pacific Mountain region wants to know why, and you need money to renovate the church and to approve it?
We have to, this all property belongs to the church, the national church. United
So we
Church of
don't
Canada.
own this church?
No.
Okay,
So we have to make that business plan to
Yep.
to the Pacific Mountain region, to the United Church of Canada,
yep,
to justify on using funds from the sale of the northern property to do certain things in this church, which we're retaining, this church. We're not demolishing it.
right, okay,
Right.
thank you, I'm
Yep.
clear now.
Okay.
Hi. I don't do this. Whoa, I haven't got Scott's notes. I don't.
It's okay, we're all amateurs here, so.
Okay, I know. Okay.
Except for
again,
Matt.
thank you for the committee that's done all this work and that's going to continue to do all the work. That's going to continue to do all the work. Number one, yes, I agree. Personally, I agree with selling off the northern part to renovate the church because it does need renovating. We can hear that, and we do need to do that. My two biggest concerns in that is, where's the thrift store going? That's a big portion of our church money coming in, right? Where is that going? I know we'll have to discuss that. That's a big one, to house it in the church that we've got now. Number two, with the development of Surrey around this area, because I live in this area too and I can see it, we've got high-rises, sky-rises going in, we've got a lot going in this area. The potential for this church to grow is huge, and I just love that. The ministries that can come out of that is huge. And I can see if we sell off the northern part, we may need more parking. I have a concern about the parking for the people coming to the church if we're going to increase. So that was another thing too that I was
Yeah.
thinking of too.
I'll address that.
And for now, I think that's all my questions. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Let me answer that question, those two questions first, right? The thrift store, yes, this year we're probably going to make about $55,000, right? On a really good year, it probably would be around 70, but we've had to start from scratch after COVID. So we're probably, going forward, we could possibly be losing about $70,000 a year in income. But that's sort of what Matt was relying to, is an endowment fund invested, and the proceeds, but the interest off of that money. We have to figure out that, that's part of this business plan we're talking about. If we're going to wind up losing money, we're not going to agree to this business plan. It has to be able to replace that lost revenue. And we're also talking about the salaries of a second minister and stuff like that. So we have to consider all of that, right? So what was the second question again? Parking. We have 99 parking spots. Yes, developing this property may take some off the back of the parking, but we're probably going to still wind up with about 70, 80, right? So if you figure 2 people in a car, right? And, you know, you still got, that would almost double what the people is attending right now. I think we'd still be okay. There still is, probably would be still parking on this street too. I don't think it would be a problem with parking, right? If this was developed too, there'd be underground parking, right? So it's not like they're going to use our parking. That's a separate development. So they're not going to be parking in our parking. So I don't think there'll be a problem with parking. We do appreciate that the place is developing, and that's something we're relying on too, and that's part of the business plan too, is that the congregation would grow. But we don't want to totally rely on that, because that's what happened in 1998. We spent a lot of money building this building, a large building, and then it didn't go that way. It went the other way. So that's why we're in a problem right now, right? And have been in a problem for many years, because the congregation didn't increase. It decreased, right? We had planned in 1998 that the congregation would increase. It didn't. But I think the future of this area is good. And I think with the high rises that's going up around here, there's 3 or 4 high rises straight down 160 and Fraser Highway. One is like 42 stories that's being proposed. There's other ones over here, close to Safeway, that's been proposed. So there is in the future, very near future, there will be a lot of influx of new people. And we're hoping that people will come to the church. Yeah. Was there somebody else? Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to turn it towards you guys. So there was a couple maps there that showed the potential of a road going through here. If we do that, and then this is here, like a potential road. I know that the property behind us they've voted against redevelopment. So where would this potential road be?
No, that was the original plan for the Fleetwood plan, was the road going right to our daycare.
No, but the map that you had here had potential road on the diagram?
There's a road going up between the properties.
Well, looks like it was going right
No,
here.
that's our existing road that we have right there. You see the road?
Well, no, I'm looking, I see the parking lot, Doug, but that says local road. It doesn't say Northwood's parking lot.
Yeah, okay. I'll let Matt talk to that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. And I think it also has to do with the other question that we had earlier. Sorry, I don't know your name, but thank you for Linda. Thank you, Linda. And I apologize if I was confusing when I showed the various options in the beginning. Maybe I could just firstly address that question by clarifying that one of the things that we would have to do, actually 2 clarifications if I may, that in moving forward with this approach, Northwood would need to be consulting with 2 groups for their approval. Obviously, first of all, yourselves have to be in approval of the direction you're moving in, but there is some requests and eventually formal approvals that have to be made of the City of Surrey, and they're to do with subdivision, which I'll talk about in a moment. And then also what came up in Linda's question was around the regional office of the United Church and who owns the property. And I'll just try to touch on that just briefly, because that is, I think, relevant to the full picture. Northwood United Congregation is the trustee of your property, and the Pacific Mountain region is the beneficial owner. And so what that really means legally is that both the congregation and the region have an interest in the ownership of the property, and to move forward with a plan to sell or subdivide or redevelop, both the congregation and the region have to be happy with that. They have to both endorse that direction. So it's not like you don't own your property and they do, or they own it and you don't. There needs to be a collaborative approach, because the way that church property is typically held in the province, the congregation is the trustee and the region is the beneficial owner. So you do have an interest in the ownership of your property. I don't want people to think that you don't, but it does need some endorsement and some collaboration with the region. Bringing it back to the question, the subdivision, currently you own a 3-acre piece of property, 1 3-acre piece with the church building right in the middle. We see the opportunity to sell off the northern portion. And we see that opportunity because, first of all, physically, there is a piece of property that's not being used. And secondly, because the city's Fleetwood plan contemplates the kind of development that could allow that portion of the property to be developed, as well as the southern portion as well, but we can concentrate on this for now. However, to do that, to actually sell off the northern portion, we would have to subdivide it. We would have to get the City of Surrey's approval to draw a new property line somewhere to the north of this building to allow the church to continue to own this piece and to allow you to sell that piece to a developer. And when we do that, we have to go to the City of Surrey, we have to make a case, we have to present a proposal, and one of the things that they will very likely do is they will impose some conditions upon that subdivision, and some of those conditions will be the introduction of new city streets that will have to come through the property and what they call get dedicated to the city. So as part of the subdivision process, we would present a plan with showing how the subdivided property would function, and that will have to be approved by many departments of the city, including their engineers, and the engineers are focused on roads and how new parcels would be accessed. And it's in that process that the city would ask probably for a north-south road through on the western side of Northwood's property and on the eastern side of the neighbour's property, and we'll come to that in a moment. And it's likely that they would also look for an east-west connection. We've been factoring that into all of the various design iterations and the preliminary business plan we're doing, and we think that that can work well for the church and it can work well for the city's requirements. So we'll just have a quick look at those. So can we go one more slide forward? Oh, and one more again. Okay, let's go back. I'm not sure where the slide is I'm looking for. Sorry, back again. The other way. Apologies. One more. And one more. Okay, let's just look at this one. Do I have the... So, can people hear me without the microphone? Yeah. Okay, so what the City of Surrey are looking for is a new road that goes north-south through the property that straddles the property line of Northwood and the neighbouring property here. So, in the case of redevelopment this area, what they're looking for is to say, we want that road through there. And then what the City of Surrey is, I think, likely to say, is that if we want to just create this piece as an initial phase, they'd also want to see a road come in from 156.
Just a reminder, there are 10 people watching on Zoom and YouTube, and they can't hear me.
Where's your headset, Bob? Can you not have your headset?
Okay, sorry. So all I'm trying to show here, and I apologize if it's confusing, is that as part of the subdivision, thanks, Scott. Thank you. Does that work?
Yeah, that's going to work great.
Hook it in your pants.
Thank you.
Put it in your pocket.
Thank you. So as part of the subdivision, those roads will likely be required to be factored into the plan and eventually built. They wouldn't need to be built by the church, they would likely be built by the developer, but that's just part of the subdivision. So that's why we're looking at some possible roads there. The other thing that I'll touch on is there was mention of the property next door to the west, which is the Barkerville Strata. And the Barkerville Strata owners have been exploring redevelopment. They've been talking to a developer, they've been talking to the City of Surrey, and our understanding is that they have now voted towards redeveloping. They're working with a development partner, and they are moving in that direction. And our work is completely independent of that, but from a contextual point of view, that's what we've heard, and perhaps at some future point, the city of Surrey will bring that up in our conversations with them. But that's what we've heard. That's happening on the western side of the property.
Is that something you've heard very recently?
That is something which we heard that probably a month ago.
Okay.
We heard that, I think there are 34 owners, and we heard that those 34 owners, through their broker Colliers, had been working with a developer over a period of time, and that they had achieved unanimous approval, and all 34, forgive me if it's not 34, but it's approximately that, 44, sorry. All 44 had unanimously agreed to move forward with a development project, and we were approached by Colliers on behalf of the developer saying that they had reached that conclusion and that they would be interested at some point in also talking to us to see how that project could potentially align with what our plans are. To which we said, we're not ready to do that yet, we're just at the very beginning, but we did hear that they have a unanimous decision to move forward with redevelopment.
Okay, the person that worked in the office this summer, his mother lives there, and so that's not what he had told me the end of August, but that may have changed. But what I wanted, okay, so basically what you're saying is a road behind the church and then a possible road down here.
Possibly, yes.
Right.
Subject to further city analysis, but that's the current indication of what they are looking for.
So my question, and I don't mean to be rude, but who are you working for? The Pacific Mountain?
Yeah, yeah. I'm
No, but like, are you you're an architect or a designer or whatever?
I'm a project manager, and I'm a consultant working for the Pacific Mountain region of the United Church.
Okay.
And the Pacific Mountain region of the United Church, through the person I report to there called Don Evans, is supporting Doug and the committee in their analysis.
No, I understand that part. I just wondered who you work for, not outside of here. Are you with a developer? Do you
No,
work for-
not
okay.
at all. I'm a self-employed freelance development consultant, and I have a number of clients, and one of my clients is the Pacific Mountain region of the church.
Okay, fair enough. My son-in-law is an architect. He's designed some of these United churches that have been developed, so I understand the process a little
Right.
bit. So I'm not totally green here, but so are we being short-sighted though? I know we need an influx of money, but once the SkyTrain comes through, would that property not be worth more money later than right now?
Always more. Hindsight is 20/20. Property here is always more.
The only thing I'd say to that question, I agree with Doug, but what I'd say is that I think what's very significant for Northwood is the Fleetwood plan is contemplating greater density than has ever been the case in the past. And got it. And what we would hope is that if you were to move in the direction of selling the northern property, the advantages, the density advantages from the Fleetwood plan would be realized in your sale proceeds.
Okay, that's the concern that I have, which Pam has just raised. I'm wondering whether this... Hello? Okay. Whether this plan might be short-sighted in the long run. I'm concerned that if we sell off the northern property, sure, that gives us money to replace the furnace on the roof and make a lot of improvements and maybe alleviate shortages of income over the next 15 years or so. But in that period of time, 15, 20 years, we could find ourselves in the same position. Having upgraded this building to some extent, but then it gets run down over time, and then we get short of money again, and then we're sitting on a much smaller piece of property, which is worth much less than it is now. Before coming here, my wife and I were part of Gilmore Park United Church in Richmond. They were able to redevelop their property and build a large seniors home, which incorporated the church building facilities. A very nice development. I'm sure you're familiar with that. But I'm wondering whether possibilities like that would not be eliminated or much restricted by us selling off the northern part of our property here now.
Thank you. That's a great question. I don't think that those possibilities would be eliminated. when I began, I mentioned that there's sort of two characteristics that Northwood has, and I really do think that is the case. Most of the work that I do for other United Church congregations that are contemplating real estate development as a means to solving some financial sustainability issues typically always involve complete elimination, complete demolition and removal of the existing church, and then a complete redevelopment of the property, normally to include a replacement church within the project. Most of the projects I'm doing in the Lower Mainland with the United Church fall into that category. When we first got involved, Don and myself, with Doug and the committee, because that's what happens in most of the situations we're working on, that's what we looked at. And the image on the wall where Linda questioned, where's the church? What we contemplated in building C that's on the screen, what we contemplated is that could be a complete redevelopment of the whole property, and in building C, there would be a replacement church space factored into the redevelopment. However, so we've explored that direction a little bit, but it became obvious to us that building A could potentially be created, leaving the existing church in situ, and you don't have to go through so much of the disruption of having to leave the property for a few years into a temporary worship space, come back into a new space, and so on. So we embarked on the idea of, let's see if we could move forward with a plan that would involve building A, leaving C and B for later. And I think that's the key point in the question. In my view, continuing to own the southern portion of the property where the church building currently sits still allows all of the options that most United Churches that I'm working on have in the beginning. They have the opportunity to redevelop their whole property. That unfortunately typically involves having to leave the property for a few years into a temporary space but then come back. But redevelop the property, and in this case, redevelop it with buildings C and B that could be any number of types of project. It could be a seniors residence, it could be an affordable rental project, it could be market housing, and all of those options could have a replacement church space, typically at grade. So I feel that the plan that the committee is contemplating moving forward with, of subdivide, sell, have a developer build building A, that could bring financial proceeds to the church. The church could use those proceeds to fix up the existing building, endow the balance in an annuity that pays you a regular income, and that may be all is needed for many years. But then when the time does come in the future, whether it be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, who knows, there's then the opportunity to contemplate redevelopment of the southern piece, perhaps when this building eventually has reached its useful life. And that could allow all sorts of different ideas to be explored at that time, whether they include a seniors like the project in Richmond or any number of other options. So I feel with this plan, if this plan was to work, which I hope it will, I think it can, but it does need some cooperation from the City of Surrey. But I think that this plan is a particularly good one to keep that flexibility into the future.
So I went to Bethany Newton before I came here, which is 14 years ago, and they sold off a big portion of their property, and there were tons of high-rises, or not high-rises, townhouses and condos and things being built with the anticipation that that would bring more people into their church. That did not happen to my knowledge. You do know how long the Fleetwood plan, the projections of the Fleetwood plan, like we could sell off the north side of the property, we could do repairs and maintenance and fancy this building up, but the Fleetwood plan and the City of Surrey's plans, they're kind of carved out for 20, 25 years. So you must have a timeline, because what I hear is that we can sell this off, do this, and you're saying, who knows, 5, 10, 20 years. But we do know the timelines on those plans because they're public knowledge. So the Fleetwood plan obviously is coming through with a SkyTrain and high-rises everywhere. And so I think that we could sell this, get some money, but in 10 years' time, we could be right back to square one. And so that's my concern. And if you know, there's a street behind and a street here. And yeah, I mean, I don't see that if we're looking to get more people in the church by hiring more ministers and we're going to be taking away parking, I mean, yes, maybe there's 2 people per car, but I'm single. There's lots of single people in this congregation. There's not 2 people per car here. And so like I don't totally I'm not totally on board with this. I have a ton of other questions. I won't take up all your time, but I think there's a lot of things that you probably know the timelines on that maybe we should all know that kind of stuff. But yeah, no, I mean, like I say, I won't go more, but yeah.
Maybe I'll just address the timeline. So our understanding, and we don't know this is the case because it's subject to political process, but our understanding is that the City of Surrey are hoping to approve the Fleetwood plan next year. The summer is the guidance. Currently it's a draft plan. They hope to approve it next year. That plan would then be solidified and in place, and that would be the definitive plan for this area until at some future point, whenever that might be, they do another one. So what we're thinking with this phased approach, with the approach that Doug and the committee are leaning towards, we're thinking that we could plan the property with the City of Surrey in a way that fits their long-term plan, which they hope to approve next year, which is roughly what's shown on that image, but only move ahead with the phase that is building A. So we would be speaking to the City of Surrey about saying, A, B, and C fits with your plan. Will you allow us to move forward with this and subdivide to allow us to do to sell a piece of property for A, but then we would just retain, or Northwood, sorry, I mean we, the committee, we would just retain the possibility of doing B and C, which is aligned with the Fleetwood plan, whenever you want to do it. It could be, you know, long time, it could be a short time. We're not thinking that the Fleetwood plan would change in the near term. It could change in the next generation of whenever there's the next reason to plan, but the City of Surrey's plan is designed to be complete and stabilized for this area next year.
You mentioned that with the funds from the sale of this, that there would be a legacy investments coming back to the church. You also mentioned that the regional is the beneficial owner of the property. Will there be any division of the proceeds between the church? Is it all going to the church or just some of it to the church? And I have another question after this, please.
Is this still working? That's part of the business plan that we're going to be looking at. We have to develop the business plan to figure out what portion would possibly go to the Pacific Mountain region, or would all of it go to us? We don't know, right? But that's what we're asking is, can we go in that direction to find this information out? We have no clue at this time because we haven't crunched numbers, right? We suspect, I guess, a safe word to say, we suspect that we'd be okay, right? And we're not saying that we're not sharing anything with the Pacific Mountain region. We suspect there'll be some share, but we have to have a business plan that's going to be agreeable to you guys, to the congregation. If it's not going to work for us, and we're not going to be any better off, or like, as Wes said, 5 or 10 years or whatever down the road, we're going to be in the same position, why would we agree to it? We want to have something that's going to be agreeable to the congregation. If we crunch all the numbers and we come up with this business plan that doesn't look good to us, probably the committee's not going to pass it. We'll have to think of something else, a plan B, or you know, have to come back to you guys and see what you think. But those numbers are not there yet. But we'd like to explore it. That's what we're asking of you. Yeah.
And one other question. If you do go with Plan A and retain the church, you did mention that it is possibly too large for the congregation. Is there a possibility of rezoning a part of it to have a dedicated thrift shop on site?
Well, we had quite a lot of discussion about the thrift shop. The thrift shop is a it started out, what it was supposed to be is supposed to be a ministry so that we could do extra work in the community. But it quickly turned into a way of paying our utility bills. That's what it continues on today. And the fixed cost, a lot of people think that the thrift shop is just extra money. It's not extra money. It's the part of what pays for the bills that we have every month. So it pays as part of the fixed cost. There was some suggestion that we would kick out the daycare and take over the daycare and add a piece onto the church to run the thrift shop. To me, that makes no sense. We get about $30,000 a year out of the daycare. We do hardly nothing to get that. We just collect that money every month. To take that away would make no sense to me. And to spend possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars to add a piece onto the church for a thrift shop that would bring in $70,000 a year makes no sense. And a lot of people don't realize either, the thrift shop doesn't run by itself. It runs by at least 21 volunteers, many of which are 70, 80 years old. We're all getting older. And yes, we got some extra volunteers lately, but we don't know if that's going to be the case in the future. As people age, there's a lot of work. There's thousands and thousands of pounds of clothing that our ladies sort every year. There's thousands of pounds of clothing that I take to the recycler every year too, right? Like I bill them for 3,000 pounds of recycled clothing, right? There's a lot of stuff that people do that a lot of the congregation doesn't know. The daycare is just, we do nothing. We collect the money. And to just go and make a thrift shop and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to make a thrift shop to sell goods, I believe that we can do something different and something more in line with our vision and mission with this building itself. We just recently entered into a deal with the Fraser Valley Food Bank so that we are, well, that might be sort of on the hold right now because of the tree on the thrift shop, but part of it is not. Part of it is a food program where the Fraser Valley Food Bank gets food from like Safeway, for instance. And they'll get a half a semi full of strawberries, right? And they get it in, and they quickly realize that in this economy, you can't sell 1 pound packages of strawberries for $7 and be able to sell them fast enough before they spoil. So they wind up taking lots to this here place and give to the food bank, because otherwise they're just going to have to throw it out. But they give it when it's fresh because they already know their schedule. They won't be able to sell it. So what we proposed and agreed with Matt from Fraser Valley Food Bank is that some of that food would come here. They were going to provide us with a cooler. We would sell that food, right? And the donation goes back to the Fraser Valley Food Bank. That's the kind of work that this church should be doing, right? Giving back to the community, right? That doesn't give us money, but it goes along with our vision and mission, right? Yeah. Scott, go ahead.
And I think for me, that Doug, is what gets me very excited about this business plan. Amadi, if you can go to the very first slide, and that's how Doug started us off, was getting around, and this is our current mission and vision that we adopted. We refined. It was 5 years out of date. It just had expired, and then we just renewed it last year. So for us to be in a place where we could truly address our mission goals and to be about that, and one of the harsh realities we know is that requires funding. So we have been in a place where for several years we have not been able to replace ministry staffing. We've gone down to a single minister, and as we all know, there's only so much that can happen, so much programming that can happen with one. So the chance for us can you imagine what this would look like for us to dream what Northwood is to be about, to think about the changing demographics in our city and how we could minister to that growing, changing community, to think about what Northwood should look like into the future. One of those mission points, as you notice, the third one, is about the infrastructure, and we have not been able to address that goal, that mission point. So, like, we need to be really clear that if this heating unit on our roof was to go, the preliminary cost that we found is it's around the $200,000 mark, and that is something we are not in a position to fundraise for. We know that. So we're in a very critical position, but we're also in a very wonderful position that we have options. As Matthew mentioned, we do have options. So we can really carefully move in a direction where we want to move, and we can very carefully make those directions forward. We can put a dream team together around what we want to dream our ministries to look like. Certainly what we're doing Sunday morning will continue, but all the many other options and ways we can do that through staffing, through building, addressing deferred maintenance issues. So we could really create, moving forward, some other options. As Doug mentioned earlier in other meetings too, having that tarp on the roof was not like a big invitation for people to come and join the church. That needed to be done, and that was hard for us to raise those funds. I mean, this carpet, for example, I mean, we love our church, but this is not the image we want to be as a church. So this allows us to move ahead and be the kind of church that we want to be, and then really to think about the kind of ministries and the staffing and the things we want to do in a very careful way. We're not going to have a staff of 10 people. We're not talking that kind of money, but we're talking about ways that we can very carefully position our ministries in the future. Do we know if it'll grow? We don't know. But are we doing the mission and the vision of this church? Absolutely, because that's what you've named it as, and that's the direction we want to head as. So that's why I'm very supportive and excited about the first option. It doesn't disrupt this building at all. It beautifies it. It allows it to be useful, and then it allows us to move ahead in a direction that allows us to be the vision and the mission that we dream Northwood to be. Thanks, Doug, for letting me speak.
Thanks, Scott. And we did quite a lot of work on our vision and mission statement, and for people to realize, if we have that statement and we ignore it, the statement really means nothing, right? This is what we're supposed to be doing, and why would we spend all this time in trying to update our vision and mission statement and just ignore it? I understand some of the concerns that people have, but we're kind of at a point where we could continue on until something happens, I guess, and then, I don't know, we come back, right? I didn't catch what he said.
We've got people leaving. I'm just wondering, would it be helpful to you if you asked for a show of hands just to see what kind of support there might be here?
Well, we sort of discussed that in our last meeting, and we didn't want to do that.
Okay.
So we didn't want to put people on the spot, and there's some people that's not able to attend this meeting. So we didn't really want to do that. So I'm honoring what the committee agreed to on Thursday in our Zoom meeting. So we'd just like to have feedback, and this doesn't stop today. You can call me anytime. You can email me. You can, if you haven't thought about some questions or comments, you can contact us. My email, my phone number is available to anybody. Yeah, Linda?
Can you just put back to the slide where it had the southern part of the property developed into a B and a C? Yeah.
Yep.
So that looks like the church has been redeveloped. It's no longer there, but it has two separate buildings on it, right?
Yep.
So what could happen is we could renovate this church, sell the first part, and then who knows how much longer we would have here. But say we had 25 years. In 25 years' time, it could look like that. Right?
Correct.
Absolutely.
So we have an option. with
Yes.
this.
Correct, yeah.
What a lot of people don't realize, and,
Okay.
and Matt
Thanks.
might correct me on this, but 25 years from now, you may be able to put a high-rise here.
Yep.
It may be totally changed so that you'd have a 50-story building 25 years from now, and the property would probably be worth much more money, right? But it wouldn't address, like, if we just didn't go ahead with the plan that we're saying now, how do we address, somebody should tell me how we address our issues now. We could just continue on and wait until we run out of funds and maybe ask the church to give us money. You know, I don't know what we do, right? Right now, the heat is on, but tomorrow the heat could go out and that unit is gone. We have about 28,000 in our general checking account. It would probably cost at least 200,000, and we wouldn't be able to get it done tomorrow. It would take time for them to come and do this. It may cost more than 200,000 to take that off and replace it and do all the stuff they have to do up there. I guess we'd have to, I don't know, have electric heaters or something trying to heat this place, which would cost a lot of money too. There's not a lot of options. This is not a small building. So if somebody could explain to me what we would do without doing something, then I'm glad to hear it. Right? We could, that's one of the options we discussed too, is to just go and look at another piece of property and build a church somewhere else. I think that's totally wrong. I mean, we're in an ideal situation in the heart of Fleetwood. We're going to build a church in the middle of the Tules somewhere and then expect to increase our membership? That doesn't make any sense to me. We're not going to get prime real estate. How much are you going to pay for that? You know, you're not going to get it. There is no land. They don't even have land for schools. Yeah. Go ahead.
Talking in public, but I just have a question about timelines. This seems really exciting, and I totally agree that things need to change. Realistic,
Yeah.
looking at the numbers. So we've had an informational meeting. When will a vote be held?
We don't know at this time because this business plan is not a simple thing. It takes time, right? That time I can't tell you because we haven't actually done this before. I mean, we done it in 1998, I guess. But for us to do this, this is rather complicated because we have a building that needs repairs, right? And we have a situation where we're not meeting our vision and mission. So we have to determine what does that look like to abide by the vision and mission statement, right? So what do we have to do? How much is that going to cost? I hate to talk about money, but I mean, everything costs money. There's not anything you can do that doesn't cost money. A second minister and a youth leader or whatever is going to cost money, right? Fixing this, taking this carpet out, I don't know how much that's going to cost. We have to do probably 2 or 3 estimates on each thing. We can't just go to our friend with the carpet place and say how much it will cost. We have to have 2 or 3 estimates on everything that we do. We have to document that, and we have to work with the Pacific Mountain region to justify our business case. Not only with the Pacific Mountain region, we got to justify it with you guys, with the congregation, as to how this is going to work. And is it going to be a real benefit going into the future? I think it has the possibility, right? And I'm fairly optimistic. It's not a guarantee that the congregation would increase, but I'm fairly optimistic with the way this place is building up, that we have a better chance in 1998, right? The densification of this area is going very quickly as opposed to 1998. So I'm optimistic. Yeah, Scott?
So I'm just aware of many folks just kind of making their way and leaving, so I'm just wondering if there's any final questions. We should perhaps entertain those. Please come forward now. And as folks are maybe pondering that or not, just a reminder, please get this information out. This meeting is being carefully, notes are being taken. Thank you, Sandra, for that. This meeting, thank you, Amadi, is being live streamed and will be recorded and uploaded on the website. So folks will be able to read the written notes. They will be able to receive those notes on email or snail mail if they wish. So please, we want this information out as much as possible. I'm not seeing folks coming forward, so I'm going to thank our committee, Doug, and your committee for all of the hard work they have done. And this was a timely opportunity for us to just catch up. As I introduced this is an informational meeting, so now we have the information of exactly the work they've done, the different avenues that were considered, and possibly the direction that we will go. We could not vote today on something that doesn't have a business plan. It makes no sense to vote on anything, so absolutely not. But I'm very excited about the direction that they're moving, and working with Matthew and Don Evans from Pacific Mountain Region, we can only tell you what a gift they have been, because this is a whole area that we are very much lay people in, and to be guided and shepherded in such a way has been a tremendous blessing to have that from the region. So we thank you for everyone for all of your work. Thanks for those folks. Thank you. I'm just going to, if it's okay, Doug, I'll close us with a blessing.
Just one
and
second.
Doug will have a final
Just 1
comment
second.
before that.
We have a scheduled meeting with Don and Matt on December the 7th. So I encourage people to email me, phone me, whatever, so I can take information back, because we have to know by that meeting where you guys are at, so that we can go forward or not. That's what we need. So feel welcome to email me, phone me, whatever. Give us the information.
And members
back.
of the committee too, just put your hands up. There's some others here, members of the committee, nice and high. So you have those folks are on the committee. So please speak with. I mean, I know Doug's mean, right? So we don't want to talk to Doug, but I'm just joking. But speak with anybody on the committee. This is not a time for us to be quiet and shy about our thoughts. This is a time to get excited about our future. This is a time to dream into it, and for us collaboratively to make these decisions forward. When we do have a business plan that makes sense with the region, and with the committee, again, it will come back to the congregation, and voting would happen at such time then. So we'll do that, but we'll get the information out. We'll continue to share that as salient information comes forward. Any closing comments, Matthew? Doug? Okay, I see we're 10 minutes away from the Stampeders and the Lions. Go Lions. And friends, let's just give thanks to God that has been guiding us and blessing us with this amazing space that we continue to call home, this Northwood property, this church of ours. And we ask for wisdom and vision as we continue to be stewards of this land. We ask that it would continue to be a church that makes our elders proud for the legacy they have given unto us and the ways that we carry it forth into the future. And so bless this work of the committee. Guide all those who care so deeply about this work to share their thoughts, to pray for this work, and may we continue to be this community of faith that embraces all of creation with the love of Christ. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.